Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning. I was going to sing for you, but I've decided against it because it's too early. Anyway, this thoughts from the car today. On the way to work this morning, I was thinking about generosity. And I was thinking about how generosity, there's actually a science to generosity. Did you know that? They've actually done some really cool studies about generosity and how humans are actually biologically wired to be generous. Did you know that? They have done multiple studies on toddlers, actually. And what they found in all those studies is that toddlers actually have an innate generosity within themselves from a very young age. I don't know about you guys, but my kids, I remember this so vividly when they were toddlers and little babies, giving them those little melty puffs when they first start eating solid foods, and they would melt in their mouth so that they wouldn't choke. And I remember them constantly wanting to give me the nasty, melted, gross puff to eat. And they were being generous. They would share their toys with me. And I just remember they were so generous. I remember thinking that, like, wow, they just give so much. But studies have shown that as children get older and they become more self-aware, this is where they become less generous and they become more selfish. So, hello, we're adults. We're not toddlers. It is innate in us to be generous, but because of self-awareness, we tend to be less generous, which is really interesting. Now that can go the opposite way as well, because when we become aware of the need for generosity, we can then, make the pendulum swing the other way. So generosity is actually, you guys remember on Friday, I was talking about pleasure, happiness, and joy. So remember, the pleasure sector of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. They actually have found studies that being generous to others gives you the exact same dopamine hit in the pleasure sector of our brain. It hits that reward circuit. So by being generous, we actually can get the same feeling we get from eating food or having sex. Amazing. Is that not amazing? I think it's amazing. Anyway, so why is generosity important though? Why? So, okay, there's science to it, but why is it important for each of us as individuals and as a society? Well, again, if we go back to the studies that they've done on the science of generosity, they actually have shown that those who volunteer their time, those who give of their material resources, the resources of their time, their energy, money, basically, that they actually have better health and longevity in their life. So you want to live a long life, you need to be generous, is what these studies are showing. Also, it's less burnout in the workplace. They have shown, again, studies have shown that if you are generous with your coworkers, if you see a coworker who is struggling, they have used all their spoons, they just don't have the capacity to finish a project. If you kind of help and step in, you actually help reduce the amount of burnout that person is going to have, which creates less burnout in the workplace, which creates longevity in the workplace. And it's actually good for you too. Again, just for your own health, but also oftentimes when we are generous with others, there is a lot of reciprocity. So if you are generous in your workplace, oftentimes, not always, because people in society, there will be someone will help you when you need help in the workplace. People are just happier buying for others, studies have shown. So oftentimes, people in society, we talk about how selfish we are because we buy, we're consumers, blah, 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 which is all very true, right? But again, studies have actually shown that people are actually happier. That pleasure sector, remember, it's very external, externally based, externally focused, and it needs to be hit again and again and again, that dopamine hit to activate the part of our brain. You can actually activate the same part of the brain rather than receiving, but by giving and actually going out and buying something for someone else. Being generous with our time. Giving our time to someone else actually makes us happier people. So that's kind of cool, I think, too. When we are being generous with others, it activates and helps grow empathy and compassion, and it actually helps motivate others and ourselves. So when we're generous with others with our time and talents, we are actually using empathy and compassion for them. And the more empathy and compassion and a motivation that we give others, the more we receive for ourselves, because that means we have our hands open, which means we can receive something more. When we have our hands fisted tight like this, we can't receive more. We have to open our hands, and we have our hands open, things are going to fall out of our hands, which is the empathy and the compassion and the whole generosity thing. And so also, we're not talking, I want you guys to remember that, all these things are super significant, right? Like, this is why it's important. But when I'm talking about why it's important, I'm not talking about largesse or extreme generosity. I'm talking about super little things in life. Just being kind, that's being generous, because sometimes it takes effort to be kind. Certain people, certain situations, certain seasons in our life. So we're not talking about giving cars away and massive amounts of money and all of your time and energy to others. We are talking about small things that all of us can do every day. So in talking about that, it brings us to my next point of so how can we be more generous? What are some practical ways we can be more generous people in society and help create this culture of generosity? And I think the first thing we have to remember is our generosity is in proportion to what are we consuming in life? What are we reading? What media are we surrounding ourselves with? What kind of people are we surrounding ourselves with? If we are watching the news every day, all day long, I can guarantee you're probably not enacting generosity very much, because the news is super depressing. The news is not about generosity at all. It's the opposite for the most part. If you are surrounding yourself with people who are innately selfish, you're probably not being as generous and receiving the generosity that you need. What we watch, what we read, what we consume, what we surround ourselves with has a huge amount to do with whether or not we are being more generous. It's that old adage of lie with dogs, wake with fleas. It's true. I hate it. My mom said it to me. My parents said it to me growing up, but it's true. There is some truth to it. Gratitude, I think, is the next thing. I do this on one of my socials. I do this gratitude practice every day with my people there. And we just take time as we're drinking our coffee in the morning. We share silly selfies of our bedhead, and we name things that we're grateful for. And some mornings are harder than others. Not gonna lie. Some mornings it's just for this coffee that I'm drinking. That's it, because that's where you're at. But even by doing that, by even enacting that moment of gratitude, it changes things. Gratitude literally changes your brain. It literally changes your brain. Again, studies have shown this. I can get you all of them if you really want to know where these studies can be found, but you can easily Google them. Okay, so practically, be grateful. Take some time for some gratitude. The other thing is leaving positive encouragement and reviews for businesses. So often we will criticize a business, but if you have a great experience with a business, give them a great review. Love a book that you read on Amazon? Give it a great 5-star review. Just that tiny little thing doesn't just help your life, but it helps someone else. And again, we're not talking about huge amounts of money. So another practical thing is using your time, talents, and knowledge with an organization that you can support or a cause that you can support. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of time and effort. It can be something small. And I think the last thing that is just super easy and that we're really terrible at receiving and giving is compliments. You can compliment the clerk if you like the way their hair looks that day, or a shirt they're wearing, or if you have a coworker, you can, if you like their shoes, compliment them, or someone did something well, compliment them, give them a compliment. You know, like, it's so easy at work, at home, in our offices, out in society. We can compliment people. We don't have to just not talk. And I get it. Introverts, I get it. But try it. Just try it and see how it changes your life. So this brings me to my question for today. I want you guys to think about, how are you already being generous? Because it's good to acknowledge how we're already being generous in our life. Are you doing some of these practical things already? And also ask yourself, where can you improve in your generosity? Like, where can you be more generous? And why, if you struggle with generosity, why do you think that is? Is it one of those things, that we talked about of, are you not doing or being or enacting and believing about generosity? Is there something else you can do to just one little thing, one little perspective shift that can help you be more generous? I don't know, but it's Monday. Have a great day, guys. Thoughts from the card today. I hope it helps someone. Bye. Have a great day.